my name is Stephen Carrier. I'm the fire chief. I reside at 589 Morrill Street, Guilford. Deputy Chief Rick Andrews is with us from Coach Road. Engineer Don Spear is also with us, and good friend Sean Mulcahy from Lakes Region Fire Apparatus will give us some technical support. Tonight, what we did is we reworked our presentation that Chairman Akerley gave to the Board of Selectmen just a few weeks ago, and we've tried to put it into a more concise format where we will try to address the need to replace engine 4, the problem that we're having, and then give you some examples. Next slide, please. The first slide is simply an overview slide. We're talking about our engine 4, which is currently out of service. This is a 1,500 gallon minute pump with 1,000 gallons of water. It's an engine. It's defined as an attack engine, which we'll do for you. Yes.
Just wanted to ask a question with that. That was on the road when it broke down. Is that the correct statement? No, you had it taken over to Lakes Region Fire Apparatus.
We drove it to Lakes Region Fire Apparatus.
They are the ones that took it out of service, or made the recommendation to take it out of service, or what happened at that point?
Can you wait for just a couple minutes on that?
Sure.
I'll discuss that probably about 5 slides.
I just wanted to see the sequence of how all this occurred.
Sure. This is just the overview slide. The major problem is the pump. An attempt was made to repair that pump. There was some major damage to it. The apparatus fleet that we currently have with engine 4 being out of service, you can see at the end, is engine 2, which is an attack engine, engine 1, which is a water supply engine, and the tanker, which is a water hauler. Next slide. There was a lot of discussion in the previous, or after the previous presentations, that some of the definitions were blurry, and I tried to put this into layman's terms for people to try to understand. When we say an attack engine carries a number of hose lines that can be used to carry water to the scene of a fire, small hose lines that can be stretched into buildings and so forth to extinguish fire. Our attack engines carry 1,000 gallons of water, which is substantially less than our tanker, which carries 2,500 gallons of water. But probably even, or as important as the water and the hoses that it carries, is all of the other equipment that is on the attack engine that allows us to safely investigate the incidents that we respond to and then to mitigate those incidents. Something as simple as a carbon monoxide alarm activation. We don't carry carbon monoxide detectors on our other apparatus, our tanker or engine 1. We carry that on our attack engines because we expect those engines to be the first to arrive at a scene and the first to go into service and investigate what the problem is. Next please. A water supply engine, example of that is our engine 1. It's designed with a very large pump, a 2,000 gallon minute pump. It carries 3,000 feet of 5-inch hose. The biggest supply hose in the area that is being used right now. It's able to transmit a large amount of water from any type of source, whether it be the lake, as you see in this picture, or a dry hydrant or a pressurized hydrant, to the scene, to the attack engine that's at the scene. Next, please. The tanker, again, our tanker carries 2,500 gallons of water. It also carries 2 portable tanks, which you see deployed there. If you were able to see more closely on this picture, you would see that the tanker is able to drop water from both sides, chutes on both sides, and also from the rear. So that is a water hauler. The value of a tanker is the movement of water, is to move water on the road, get filled rapidly, get back on the road, and move it back to the scene. Next week. These slides are really talking about the need of engine 4 and why it is important to our fleet. As stated, it responds to all major fire incidents. It regularly responds to chimney and brush fires. In fact, in the winter months, it's specifically set up to handle chimney fires. It is the only fire engine in the fleet, and I guess this bullet right here, the third bullet, is probably the most critical to us. It is the only fire engine in the fleet that can fulfill the role of the primary attack engine, or Engine 2. Right now, when Engine 2 goes out of service, we are in a position where we are borrowing a fire engine from the city of Laconia. We've done that once already. We are also in an agreement with the Tilton Northfield Fire Department to be able to borrow one of their attack engines should Laconia's engine not be available, which has happened once already. However, we didn't have to borrow Tilton's engine. We made other arrangements. So the importance of that, you can go to the next slide. The importance of that is based on the fact that the department made a conscious decision to operate in a manner where it has 2 attack engines in service, a water supply engine and a tanker. This decision was made, or started to be made when the tanker was purchased, and then it was solidified when Engine 1 was purchased as a water supply engine. The fact of the matter is that Engine 1 and Tanker 1 have very specific responsibilities. They can't function as attack engines. They have water, they have pumps, and they have hose, but they don't have hose of sufficient length, sufficient size to be able to function as an attack engine sitting in somebody's driveway when their house is on fire. It's just not practical. They don't carry the equipment that the attack engines carry. They're not outfitted to do the job of an attack engine. Very specific, special operations pieces of apparatus. Next, please. Certainly, without Engine 4, we are unable to fully meet our mission. We don't feel comfortable in these roles. We've made adjustments to our mutual aid tables. Again, we've entered into the agreements with 2 other departments. But really, the bottom line is that we need a second attack engine, Engine 4, that's dependable, reliable, and most of all, safe. Just on a side note, since this truck was built in 1987, the standard on motorized fire apparatus has changed 4 times. So it's been upgraded 4 times. That alone is a safety concern to us. Next please. This slide 9 is how I have it written. Could be retitled in a couple of different ways. It could be titled, "How did we get here?" Or it could be titled, "What has changed since the vote in March?" And I think last night at the Selectmen's meeting, that was probably the best question that was asked by Mr. Murphy, was what has changed since we met in March? And I'll bring you through that. After the March vote, where the attempt to purchase a new engine was voted down by the voters, we met as the Board of Engineers, with the Board of Engineers at their monthly meeting in March, and discussed where we were going to go from this point. What was the plan of action? At that meeting, I presented the Board of Engineers with 5 priorities that I thought needed to be repaired on Engine 4 in order for it to be a viable attack engine. Those 5 priorities were the pump, the light bar, the radiator, the tires, and a power issue that may have been affecting the radio. It was decided that the pump was the most critical piece on the engine, and it was decided that we would send the pump out to Lakes Region Fire Apparatus to get repaired. We had a quote, the job was quoted in December, so we had that on hand. The quote was very carefully written. I believe it was for about $11,200, with notations that there was a concern about what would happen as far as plumbing issues and/or pump housing issues once they opened up the pump. There was no way to tell until we opened up the pump. So a phone call was made to Lakes Fire Apparatus. It was scheduled to go up there on April 9th. It was delivered, and 2 days later we received a phone call back from Sean that said, "You better round up the troops and come up here and take a look at this." I think that was a quote. And so on Friday the 13th, believe it or not, we traveled to Tamworth and saw the damage. And we do have pieces and parts out in the pickup truck out front if you want to take a look at those yourself. But we have a number of slides that Sean will narrate for us and describe some of the damage that we witnessed that day and that he witnessed when he opened up the pump, along with some other issues that that came to light on engine 4 that have caused us or brought us to the point that we're here tonight, asking you to recommend replacement of engine 4. So, Sean? And Rick can go as fast as you want.
Yep. I'm Sean Mulcahy, Lakes Region Fire Apparatus Service Manager. This is a lower pump housing. In a pump, there's pump upper section and lower section come machined together. They have to be replaced as a set. They're machined as a set. We can take the lower half off. That allows us to take what's called the rotating group, which is impeller, wear rings, bearings, and shafts out. And it's difficult to see in the slide. I've got some photos I can pass around also, same thing, but that's called a stripping edge. And as the impeller goes around in that center dark area between the arrows, the impeller is 11 1/4 inches round. The water is passed into it right at the bottom of the pump on the left-hand arrow, and then it goes towards the right-hand arrow. And it's supposed to be very smooth and continue out an outlet of the pump. And that is corroded through. It's probably close to 2 inches back, shorter than it's supposed to be, which is huge. And there are holes completely through it, well over 3 inches thick. Any attempt to make any repair to that is futile at this point. Next slide. That's the rotating group I was making reference to. The left-hand side with the 12 bolt holes in it is actually the packing gland. And the bronze impeller in the middle is the gap, and on each side is a wear ring. Those also are worn out. The wear rings keep the water from the high pressure side going back around to the low pressure side, and there's huge wear on those wear rings. All those parts need to be replaced. Next. That's the lower. That's another picture of the lower case. We get a little bit better idea of some of the implosion. I'll speak a little bit about what causes implosion on a pump. When you're pumping water under pressure, there's a point where your hand lines may try to flow more water than what the pump can get in from either a hydrant or another source, or especially a draft, because you're drawing water from a river. When that happens, very small pockets of air develop in that vacuum, very tiny molecules. And as they draw away from that low pressure area, they actually turn to steam and implode. And you get the same thing in a truck engine. You get it in an automobile engine, but you don't see the damage. It's in a high horsepower. And that's what eats out the liners in a truck engine. Seeing the exact same thing in a cold water pump. Every time one of those little tiny steam bubbles implodes and explodes away, it takes a piece of metal with it. And there's millions and millions of times it happens over the course of 25 years. And this is the result. And this is no surprise when we see a pump as busy as this truck at 25 years old. We're going to expect to see this kind of damage. Next. Upper pump case, that stripping edge where that arrow is, should be down into that dark area, probably 1.5 inches further. It's worn way back, pieces are broken away, may have ended up in a nozzle, or who knows where. It could have gone out through a deck gun or whatever, but over the years, pieces of that have come off. Typically, probably within the last few years, most of it, because it has to wear thin before it starts breaking pieces away. Next. That's the auto loop system on one end of the pump. That main housing needs to be replaced because in that center hole where the shaft is, there's a bronze bushing. That bronze bushing is actually spun, which is not supposed to happen. So that's one of the parts we had to put into the quote for the pump repair that costs a little bit more. Next. Want to do some safety items at this point? Sure. When we bring a truck in to take a pump out, we run it up on what's head high to main. So you could walk it directly underneath that whole truck. And while we're underneath it taking the pump out, everything's right there. It's like looking up at the ceiling. The top right-hand picture is the radiator. Those coolant fins are rotted away. About 1/3 of the bottom of the radiator. I will tell you that today, if you tried to run that truck at capacity, you would probably seize pistons in the engine. It would overheat. It was just lucky that it was during the winter time. I spent 27 years rebuilding Caterpillar engines. I can tell you for a fact that that radiator is not a good thing to have during the summer. Barely makes it through in the winter. Lower left-hand photograph is one of 4 cab mounts. That's a rubber bushing in the center, and there's a gap around it. There's not supposed to be a gap. The 4 cab mounts are completely worn out. Those are a custom item built by a company that's no longer in business. Not a big deal, but somebody's got to make cab mounts and install them in that. Any one of these issues are not a big issue. Any one of them could be repaired when we add them together. That's where we are today. The right-hand side is front spring. That's called the stacking clamp. That's that metal band that goes around the clamp, and there's a bolt over the top. You can see that's shooting up at an angle. That's not supposed to be broken. That's indicative of a spring that's been overextended and is breaking the stacking clamps. It means the springs need to be replaced in the front of the truck. Next. More pictures of the radiator and the corrosion. Custom truck, you know, if you were to take a dump truck with a tilt hood, it's not a big deal to change a radiator. It's substantially more labor, and you may not normally be able to go and find a radiator to that size. You may have to have one custom made. We don't know where Ranger bought the radiators from, so we would have to match it up and see if there was a Freightliner or somebody else that used a like size radiator. But at 25 years old, you don't know what you're going to run into there, but that needs to be changed. Next. Left-hand picture is rear spring, I believe. I have to look at it closer. No, those are rear springs. Stacking clamp on the rear springs. You can also see multiple leaves, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves with gaps in them. That truck's loaded. There should never be a gap in those springs. That's indicative of those springs being overextended, and they're starting to build gaps between the U-bolts and the ends. You're not supposed to do that. The right-hand side shows the stacking clamp missing. I know where the rivet is. On the middle leaf on the bottom, there's a little round divot there. The stacking clamp's been completely gone for some time. Next. That's another left front picture. There's a front spring, and the right picture is a rear spring, and it's showing the overextension of the leaves. Just all 4 springs need to be replaced. Next. Left picture is the front air actuator. You step on the brake pedal on the truck, it actuates through an air line, pushes on a brake chamber, actuates the brake. You can see in the middle around the rod is a broken spring. That is the out of service criteria that required this truck to be parked. That's one of them. There's a difference between an out of service criteria and a state inspection. A lot of difference. Federal motor carrier out of service criteria is quite clear, and the one on the left is one of the reasons why the truck had to be towed. The other reason is once we have the pump out of it, there's no drive shafts to drive it. So you either have to pay to put the pump back in, or you just tow it, which is much cheaper. Right-hand side, brake shoes on the front, delaminating off the shoe. Drums are belled, well beyond spec. Not safe for the road. Truck should never have gotten a sticker. Next, right. Same deal. Better pictures of the brakes. I know what I'm looking at. If you look on the left-hand picture, there's a gap with some light coming up through it. Then there's the brake shoe. You can see where it's delaminating off, and the drum is way out of round. Same on the right picture. Those are both front brakes. Next, cab mounts. All 4 pictures. I believe there's 4 or 6. I don't remember how many there are in this truck. I'd have to look. I think there's 4. And that's probably a picture of each one of them. The one bottom left picture shows that gap of probably 1.5 inches around that mount. That's terrible failure. That's in very poor shape. They're all in need of replacement. Next. Cross member goes between the front frames on a cab over custom truck. The extended frames with the steering box mounts on one side and the spring shackles mount on the other. They put a cross member across there. That's a crack and a hole right up through that cross member. That needs to be replaced before that truck can go anywhere. That's a main cross member that keeps that front spring shackles and everything, and steering box and everything true and straight. Next. trying to figure out what we're trying to show. Oh, wiring. That's all wiring. That's an issue that I didn't address in any quotes, because quite frankly, I'm really not interested in doing the job, although we do a great deal of electrical work at the company I do. That's a complete, it needs to be completely rewired, and that's it's just a mess. There's a lot of chafes, a lot of areas where maybe a fuel or an oil leak at some point made the loom degrade and allowed some of the wires to get exposed. There's some repairs that have been made that aren't weather tight, just simple crimps in there. Next. That's it.
Sean, if you could just...
Sure. Yeah.
Dave, I think at this point, we can answer your question.
I think you did.
Okay.
You know, as you went through the sequence, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Just in closing, just a couple more slides. Again, I just want to bring you back to the fact that we do believe that Engine 4 is vital to the fleet. We do believe that having a second attack engine is vital to the department and how we operate, and to the ability for us to function and meet our mission to the people of the community. I do have a few more slides that will show you examples of how Engine 4 has worked for us in the past, and I'll just go over those quickly with you. This is a fire on Belknap Point Road, and Engine 4 was actually placed in the upper parking lot of the Belknap Point Motel, which is the property adjacent to this property to the right. So in the upper right-hand corner of this picture, Engine 4 was placed there and was actually pumping out of a portable tank, supplying water to the rear of the building in the fire attack that was going on in the rear. Our Engine 2, tanker, and were operating on Belknap Point Road, being supplied by Engine 1 that was pumping from the lake at the Belknap Point Motel on the lake. Next, please. You just have to click on that. This is a video. It's a little choppy at first, but I'll just let you can kill the noise if you want. I'll just try to talk through this. I didn't mean for you to have to listen to all the mess that's going on there, but the interesting part in this, you can see the gentleman or the firefighters at the front door, the hose line laying in the front yard. That's from Engine 4. This was a fire on Long Ridge Drive. It was during a training session. Engine 2 was further away from the building than Engine 4 was. Engine 4 pulled up, functioned as the attack engine. Engine 2, where the video is being shot from, pulled up in front of this building and supported the operations of Engine 4. Engine 4 played a vital role while Engine 2 was out training. Next, please. So the fire on Hoyt Road, and I know it's difficult to see, but that barn is very close to the house. It's not attached, but it's very close to the house. This is the Hoyt Road side where Engine 2 responded to and started to attack the fire from. The assignment was given to Engine 4 to approach the fire from the Long Ridge Drive side of the fire, which Long Ridge Drive is just adjacent or perpendicular to this picture. The assignment was given due to the fact that there was an exposure to the rear. Approximately 40 feet away was the garage of a 2.5-story home. Embers were falling onto that home, and Engine 4 arrived, stretched a hose line, protected the home, put out the brush fire that was extending in the brush in between the two homes, and then became part of the fire attack from a different angle to protect the home. The home is still standing today. Unfortunately, as you can probably see in this picture, the barn was a total loss. Next, please. Just two more examples for you. Engine 4 quite often functions as an attack engine during our training sessions. This is because it allows us to keep Engine 2 in service to respond to other emergencies within the community. If we didn't have a second attack engine, we would be handcuffed and we'd have to use Engine 2. Of course, we train with Engine 2 from time to time. But in that case, if this were the primary attack engine and a call came in for a fire incident, we would have to disconnect the hose lines, button up all the equipment, get the compartments loaded back up before we could respond to the fire, and that would delay our response. So that's a vital role for us to allow us to train and not have to worry about that situation. Next, please. And the final example that I like to use is the engine on the very left with the stripe across the front is engine 4. It's pumping out of 2 portable tanks that are actually connected together. You may recognize this piece of property. It's Route 11B in front of the King's Grand Inn, and we were actually conducting a water supply drill at the time. Engine 2 was off the picture to the left up in front of King's Grand Inn, simulating an attack engine. Engine 4 was supplying that attack engine. So not only was this a training session, but it was also a pre-planning session, and you can see that that's a vital role that Engine 4 is undertaking in this particular situation. Next, please. So in conclusion, just like to thank you for your attention, appreciate this opportunity, but the Board of Engineers absolutely thinks that it's in the best interest of the taxpayer to replace Engine 4, not to repair it. Also, the Board of Engineers and the department continue to believe that the new course of action, or the best course of action, is replacement with a new fire engine, and this new engine will serve as the first due attack engine in our fleet. Engine 2 will be rotated back in the fleet, hopefully extending its life and its serviceability. Thank you very much. Yes, sir?
Croc TV.